Hi, Bill Henshaw here, Constitutional Kook headquarters, with more on current events and recent happenings. And here's a thought for those of you who, like me, are troubled by the quote unquote COVID vaccine, which for openers may not exist at all. There are some people, and you know, check the videos that are put on this particular video to start with. Check the links to them for medical experts talking about it. Some of whom strongly suggest that the vaccine, quote unquote, is really a placebo. And in my view, at least to the extent that maybe the vaccine you get, quote unquote, on Park Avenue is a hell of a lot different than what you're going to get in Harlem. In any event, the thrust of this video is to point out, that our good old government in Washington, D.C. thinks they have full authority to immunize Big Pharma from any collateral consequences of their vaccines. Now, how is that possible, one might ask, if we have sovereign, independent states that have their own court system, their own people, and the whole nine yards? Can't do it. It's just that simple. If you can do that and do away with state courts in one context like this, even if it's comparatively small, you can do away with it across the board. And that's exactly, people, what has happened out there. There are no state courts, there's no common law, there's no nothing. And almost all of this got a major impetus from the ratification, capital RAT, of the non existent 14th War Amendment, which is, people have been following my videos, that's not only a key item, but it's the key to the crown jewel of all the unopposed issues that I advocate, namely that there are no states remaining which were admitted into this union. That's Pandora's box. That opens up everything. And I've got, and by the way, send me an email for information from my modestly priced materials, uwinningcourt at gmail.com. And I will fire right back with information, which will include the first 5 pages of an 83-page brief, I should say, on new states. 83 pages. The first 5 pages of introductory page, and then 4 pages of solid authorities. And these bastards can't answer 2 paragraphs. And this is even scarier now in that kind of video I'll be talking about, because it looks like the 9 old farts, aka the U.S. Supreme Court, are poised to begin resuming doing their sanctimoniously self-declared duty to say what the law is. Marbury versus Madison, 1804, for those of you that don't know. With all of the crap that's going on here, and with them being directly threatened with the court packing plan of Biden, particularly to the extent that he thinks he can do that using his powers as commander in chief of the armed forces with the executive orders. Because if they can do that and control the original jurisdiction of the court, the appellate jurisdiction has been lost as far back as Ex parte McArdle in 1867. There are no judicial courts for us to get into. No judicial courts, no judicial process, no trial by jury. What does that result in? Every allegedly applicable law on the books, federal, quote unquote, state, you name it, null and void ab initio, nunc pro tunc, as a bill of attainder, or better yet, known to the framers of the Magna Carta, Article 34, as a writ of praecipe, the taking of life, liberty, or property without judicial process. A central plank, in the original intent of the framers here in 1787 to put together a new nation and republic. If we don't have that, the nation's gone, the republic is gone, and the Constitution is gone. And trust me, these are the conversations they're having in the back halls of the U.S. Supreme Court. And if I was there as a member of that court, and who knows in a different lifetime what would have happened, but if I was, I'd be not only in the midst of that conversation, I'd be leading it. That's what 5 decades of intense, passionate, and independent study of the Constitution, history, and laws of the United States do for you. And that's what I want to help you do, is when you get into whatever court they think it is, if we can't stop them before they get there, what you do is you go in and challenge jurisdiction with multiple unopposed issues. You do it with attitude and with authority. And that's what they can't get around. And all of this nonsense that's going on now strongly suggests to me that the Constitution remains in full force and effect. We just have to get it back. And that's my job, to teach you how to do that so you can teach your children and your posterity how to do it. Because bottom line is, it doesn't take that many of us. We got the right issues, the right standing, and the right court. It's over. Okay, attorneys can't even come into our judicial court unless we let them, and you'd have to be crazy to do that, even as incompetent and ignorant as they are, not to mention corrupt. I mean, that's the big joke. Attorneys, forget about it. I've only seen one, and there may be more, but the one I met that I did like was Jerome Daly. I'll be talking about him on another video. But you just can't trust state bar association attorneys. They're in the opposite business. They're unregistered foreign agents. They haven't been appointed by the president, and they have multiple irreconcilable conflicts with our rights secured by all 6 articles of the Constitution. I've gotten a little astray here, or seemingly so, from my subject matter being the fact that Big Pharma has been immunized, from any cases in state court. But all of this is directly related to that. As if we had our sovereign independent states, and we're supposed to, and you look at the brief, those of you get my materials, I'll point out exactly where you do it out of 83 pages. And this was at a time that involved the admission of Maine and Missouri into the Union in 1818, the most important issue that's ever been before Congress. Because if it didn't come out the way it did, Maine came in as a free state, Missouri as a slave state, the United States would have been gone, 50 years before it happened in 1861. And it nearly happened again in the 1830s with the nullification crisis. That's the subject matter for another video. But Maine and Missouri, and you read the debates on this topic, and especially the speech from John Holmes, a Federalist from Massachusetts, who probably sounded like someone from South Carolina. And he wasn't. He had the opposite point of view, but he said it exactly the way it needed to be said as far as admitting new states. There's only one way to do it. And it's why I maintain we haven't had any states admitted since Minnesota in February of 1859. And all of those states now are out of here, courtesy of the ratification of the non existent 14th War Amendment. That's the situation we're in. And that's where I can be a big help here. And trust me, I have the portfolio. What I did in my South Carolina case, a local felony case that we're just now getting fully into redress of grievance. I'll keep you abreast of developments there, where they flat out refused to answer 800 pages of documents challenging jurisdiction. Bastards can't even answer 2 paragraphs. And these are law school graduates, right? Can't do it. They have the sworn duty to do it. Because if they don't think about this, if they don't have the duty to tell you where the jurisdiction of venue comes from, number one, how do we know it exists? Number two, if we're wrong and we're not, how do we know that we're wrong? And so that we can go out and instruct our representatives that are already in the legislatures and judicial department of government and you name it, and or nominate and elect those who will be bound by our wishes and make the changes that we want to see happen. If you can't do any of that, that's a broadside in support of the fact there are no elections, and therefore nobody is lawfully in office, and there is no government. And yeah, these are anarchist arguments, but we aren't the anarchists. They are, especially the New York bankers, the Bill Gates type bastards like that, trilateralists, New World Order. That's what it is they want to do. And they're scared to death of people like me coming out there, lawful de jure, just sanguineous, free white state citizen, and standing up, especially against, this critical race BS that's going on now and the woke movement. And to the woke movement, I say, why don't you bastards wake up already? Get over it. We have the political power here. That's the way it was. It's the way it is. It was not changed by the ratification of the 14th War Amendment. Had that been openly about, it never gets, amended at all. There's no amendment to the Constitution. It never gets ratified. A few odd northern states might have voted for it, but trust me, out of the 35, 36 states at the time, and you need 27, ain't, don't even get into double figures if you get that far. Not there. Get over it, people. And what it did, by the way, the real intent of the amendment was not to make us all equal by raising the freedmen to the level of state citizens. And again, that was never the intent, stated or otherwise. It was to A, do away with the states, B, create corporate citizenship, and C, to make us all equal by reducing state citizens to the level of freedmen. In other words, in our case, we went from a relationship to government with principal and agent down to guardian and ward, or more aptly put, especially in these times, master and slave. Freedmen got nothing out of the 14th War Amendment. It doesn't exist. And only on the rare occasion they have to make it look good. Think Rodney King here, for example. Something positive will happen, but it's not by design. It's because they got to make it look good to make people think that it's real and that you can get relief there, and there's none available. And I think a lot of the civil rights leaders know that as well as I do. Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton been on the back of your people for decades and not doing them any favors. And you should know better. The plain and simple fact: no civil rights, no 14th Amendment, no war powers of Congress. Get over it. Let's get out there and do it right. All of us work together, whether we're Africans, Americans, Asians, and we can make changes if and when the time comes. And there'll be big changes. They'll have to get some serious consideration in order to be in conformance with Article 5 of the Constitution. If that happens, well and good. But just the thought about that, probably a long time before it ever happens, so I'll not be involved in it. But from our perspective as free white state citizens, we have to think, do we want an amendment that raises Africans and Asians into the sovereign body politic of the nation and republic? What happens if we're wrong? Just think about that one for a minute and look at the history of the world. I mean, would anybody in the right mind, especially in the United States, want to immigrate to any Asian or African nation that's been there for, 4,000 years? And, look at what they've got, you know, and can we go over there and expect, for example, to be called an American Chinese and be admitted into the sovereign body politic there if they had one? Hell no. It doesn't work that way. And the same message for you people in Tel Aviv, it doesn't work that way either. And if you think that's anti-Semitism, you tell me the last time that a Sheketz or a Shiksa was allowed even to immigrate over there to Israel, let alone become a citizen and have full access to any job in the Israeli government. I'd love to hear it. That's not how it works. And it's not how it's supposed to work. It's not perfect, but it's the system we have, and it's the system I want back more than anything because I know that brings us all back. And even if Asians and Africans aren't a member of the sovereign body politic, they have rights, and they have the big one, right to trial by jury according to the common law, and a jury which has the power to rule on the facts and the law. With those things behind you, now a lot of this crap goes away because we are going to have rights that are enforceable in courts. And they can't go out there and just shoot and kill people like they've done. And blacks have suffered disproportionately. I don't disagree with that. But that's a desperate attempt by the New York bankers to keep divide and conquer. They've been doing it for at least 150 years, if not longer than that, because they don't want us working all together. Because once that happens, the ball game is over for them. They're out of there. We get our government back. We'll have some work to do, but we get it back and we'll have the tools to do it. That's the whole point of me being 5 decades in now, in my 15th year all in. So that's it. It reminds you again, send me an email, uwinnincourt@gmail.com. I'll send you information on what I got and maybe a couple of documents here to deal with the COVID business and some other things. I'm working on, a lot of things have happened in the last 60 days in particular. I've got to adjust my document packets. And those of you who get those packets, by the way, you get complimentary updates of all documents for 1 year, especially important in this unprecedented window of opportunity we have to go after the bastards. So that said, I've run on a little bit long here, but I hope I've made it clear, what the situation is and what we have to do and what we can do. And as a matter of fact, it's just the opposite of the woke movement and critical race theory. We as state citizens have the duty to go out there and invoke our sovereignty in order to make things better and get into a judicial court where that can happen, where they can't keep us out of there. The attorneys can't come in there unless we let them, and I'm not going to. And we make real changes in how this government operates. That's the goal of my work. It's why I'm all in. That said, remember to like the videos, subscribe, tell your friends, get the word out. The sooner we start working together, the quicker we get these bastards off our back. Thank you.